Hello everyone, Shindo Bean here, and this video is for anyone who plays Age of Sigmar who wants a quick reference to the rules from the General's Handbook 2023 Season 2 Battle Pack. I had the idea to start making these cards with the previous season, and if you resize them to 3.5 by 2.5 inches and then print them out, you can fit them in standard card sleeves, and it's just a lot easier to flip through than, a giant book or through your phone. So, it's a good idea, of course, to read through the original text of the rules to make sure you know exactly what they do. I have shortened the wording quite a bit and made abbreviations, but if you just need a quick reminder about what something does, I also like having the battle plans on cards. It makes it a lot easier to just pick a battle plan at random. Just choose a card and go with that. So there are a lot of other channels that have gone in depth with the new rules and talked about tactics and stuff, but in this video I'm just going to read through the rules very briefly and make any clarifications as necessary. So with the previous season, the focus was on Galatian veterans. This season, the Galatian champions are the ones in the spotlight, and they are heroes with a wounds characteristic of less than 10 wounds and are not mounted or unique. And then we also have infantry units, which appear in several of the battalions, and these are units that have models with 4 or less wounds and are not artillery, cavalry, behemoths, or heroes. So replacing the expert conqueror and bounty hunter battalions from the previous season are 3 new battalions. We've got the Galatian command, which consists of 1 Galatian champion and 1 infantry unit, which becomes the sworn bodyguard of that champion. And this allows the sworn bodyguard to fight immediately after the Galatian champion fights in the combat phase, as long as they are wholly within 6 inches of that champion. Next up, we got the Sharpshooters Battalion, which consists of 3 infantry units, and this allows them to target Galatian champions with missile attacks, negating one of the major realm rules, which we'll look at in the next card. And then the final battalion is the Galatian Veterans Battalion, which consists of 2 to 4 infantry units, and this allows them to fight if they are within half an inch of another friendly model, which is within half an inch of an enemy model. So this rule was actually in the previous season, and it mainly just helps units with models that have big bases but short melee range, like ogres, to get more attacks in the combat phase. So looking at the new realm rules, we've got the key to victory at the top. This means that Galatian champions cannot be targeted by missile weapons while they are within 1 inch of a friendly battle line unit. Again, this can be negated by the Sharpshooters Battalion. Next up, we got the desperate action, which means if you are the player taking the second turn in a battle round, you can choose 1 Galatian champion to take 2 heroic actions instead of 1. And then in addition to the heroic actions from the core rules, we have 2 new heroic actions. The first one is Strike at the Opening, which allows a Galatian champion to fight in the hero phase, but then the Strike Last applies for the rest of the turn. One thing to note here, which I didn't include, is that Galatian champions cannot fight twice in the hero phase. If they already have a rule that allows them to fight in the hero phase, they can't use this heroic action. And then second, we've got the Lead by Example heroic action. This is basically the same thing, except it applies to the sworn bodyguard unit. So as long as they were wholly within 6 inches of the champion that used Strike at the Opening that turn, they are also able to fight in the hero phase and then strike last in combat. We've got a new realm spell called the Grinding Teeth of Galet. It casts on a 6+ and has a 12-inch range. You choose an objective that is visible to the caster, and all units, including friendly units, within 6 inches of that objective take d6 mortal wounds on a 4+. So you roll for each unit within that radius, and on a 4+, the unit takes d6 mortals. We've got one new command ability as well. It's called No Retreat, No Surrender. This one is quite wordy. It's pretty simple though in terms of the effect. It just gives +1 to the melee attacks of a unit in the combat phase, but it does have a lot of conditions. It does not apply to mount attacks, and it also cannot be used on a hero or monster. And also the unit can't have charged that turn, so it has to already be in combat. And it also can't make a pile-in move. We've got a few new artifacts that are usable only by Galatian champions. These can be taken instead of the other artifacts in the core rules or your army book. So first up, we got the Night Flyer Cloak, which allows the champion to be set up in reserve and then deploy within 1 inch of a friendly battle line unit at the end of your movement phase. Next is the Griff Feather Charm, which just provides a 5+ ward to the champion. And then finally, the Tusk Helm allows the champion to deal impact hits on the charge. So you roll a number of dice equal to the unmodified charge roll, and for each 4+, it deals 1 mortal wound. We've got a new enhancement. It's called Aspect of the Champion, and this is again only for Galatian champions, but this can be taken in addition to all other enhancements. So it's just a free upgrade for one of your champions. The first one is Tunnel Master, which allows your champion to teleport instead of moving once per battle. The normal rules apply, so it has to be set up more than 9 inches away from enemy units. The next one is Fueled by Gurish Rage, which allows your hero to ignore death once per battle, but only on a 3+. So if it takes lethal damage, you roll, and if it's a 3 or more, you negate the remaining wounds, and then it heals D3 wounds. Next one is Stubborn as a Rhinox, which makes the champion count as 10 models for the purposes of contesting objectives, as long as there are no enemy Galatian champions contesting that same objective. And finally, Leadership of the Alpha allows the champion to, once per battle, issue either Rally, All-Out Defense, All-Out Attack, or redeploy 3 times in a single phase, with no command point being spent for the second and third commands. And then for the grand strategies, we have 3 strategies returning from the previous season. Those are Tame the Land, Defend What's Ours, and Take What's Theirs. And then we've got 3 new grand strategies this season. The first one is Survivor's Instinct. So for this one, you need a general which is also a Galatian champion, and it needs to be contesting an objective wholly outside your territory at the end of the battle. Next one, The Day is Ours. This one, you simply need more Galatian champions from your starting army remaining on the field than Galatian champions in your opponent's army by the end of the battle. And then finally, Stake a Claim. You need 3 or more Galatian champions wholly within enemy territory by the end of the battle to claim that one. For the battle tactics, we have 4 returning from the previous season. Those are Desecrate Their Lands, Gaining Momentum, An Eye for an Eye, and This One's Mine. And then 4 new battle tactics for this season. Matter of Honor requires you to choose a Galatian champion or sworn bodyguard unit and then destroy that unit with attacks from one of your Galatian champions or sworn bodyguards. So any of the battle tactics here that say specific, that means you do have to choose and designate which one you're going after. The next one is United Offense, so you have to take control of an enemy objective and have 2 or more Galatian champions contesting that objective. So it needs to be one that your opponent was already in control of at the start of the turn. For Lead the Assault, you need 2 objectives you control in enemy territory, and each of those has to be contested by a Galatian champion. So you would need at least 2 champions to get this one. And then finally, Cunning Maneuver is pretty wordy, but basically you just need a Galatian champion which started the turn more than 3 inches away from enemies, and then by the end of the turn it has to stay more than 3 inches away from enemies and also be contesting an objective that you control wholly within enemy territory at the end of the turn. Moving on to the battle plans. So out of the 12 battle plans, 6 of them are returning from the previous season. This one is, I think, the only one that had a change to the rules, and it's a pretty significant one. Battle lines drawn, where the table quarters count as objectives. So this previously had a rule which prevented units from teleporting. They could not be removed from the battlefield during the battle, but that rule is now gone, so units are free to teleport. And then at the bottom there I have the scoring system for victory points for the battle plan, which this is just the standard one. You get 1 victory point if you have 1 objective, 1 victory point if you have 2 or more, 1 if you control more objectives than your opponent, and then 2 victory points for completing your battle tactic for the turn. Also returning with no changes are the Realmstone cache. I won't really go into these because they've been around for a while. We've also got the Lurkers Below and the Nidus Paths. And then finally, In the Presence of Idols and the Prize of Galat. These are all returning from the previous season. Now taking a look at the new battle plans, we've got Only the Worthy. So there are 4 objectives on this one, and the special rule is Shrines of Conquest. So for this wall, any Galatian champions are within 6 inches of an objective. Only Galatian champions can contest that objective, and also no more than 1 Galatian champion from the same army can contest any given objective. It does have the normal scoring system for victory points. Next up we got Path of a Champion. This also has 4 objectives, and the special rule is Leadership Forged in Battle, which says that if any friendly Galatian champion is contesting an objective wholly outside your territory, you can then pick 2 battle tactics instead of 1 for that turn. So this gives you the potential to score a lot more victory points, but remember that you can only choose each battle tactic once per game, so in some cases you will not want to choose 2 battle tactics. It is optional. Next up we've got the Jaws of Galat. Once again 4 objectives, and the special rule is Swallowed by the Caverns. So from the start of the second battle round, the player who is going second can choose an objective to be removed from play. Pretty simple. Next up is Hours for the Taking. This one only has 3 objectives, with the objectives on the border of each territory being that player's home objective. So for this one, the scoring system is just slightly different. You get 1 victory point for your home objective, 1 victory point for the center objective, 2 victory points for holding the enemy's home objective, and then 1 victory point if you control the center objective with a Galatian champion. And then finally 2 victory points for completing the battle tactic. Next is Position over Power. We've got 4 objectives here, with the ones on the table edge being the flank objectives, and at the start of the 4th battle round, the flank objectives are removed from play. So they are no longer viable. Again, this one has a slightly different scoring system, with you getting 1 victory point if you control any flank objective with a Galatian champion. And then finally, the most confusing one, I think, is Twists and Turns. This has 5 objectives, and the special rule is Changing Priorities. So at the end of your turn, after victory points are scored, you roll a dice for each active objective you control, adding +1 if you have a Galatian champion contesting it, and on a 1 to 3 it becomes inactive. And then at the start of your hero phase, you again roll for each inactive objective you control, once again adding 1 if you have a Galatian champion there, and on a 4+ it becomes active again. So you've got the objectives going inactive and active throughout the battle, and it seems like it'll be a hassle to keep track of. But that is it for all of the battle plans and all of the rules. I hope I didn't make any major typos here. Again, I did omit some things, but I just was going for, the most important, essential information, just to use as a reference during the battle. So let me know what you think, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.